And I am back with another late to the party video. And as a reminder, I'm not going to be editing much, so my apologies to people who have to deal with my awkward fumbling that I usually cut. But as you can tell, today we're taking a look at Transformers Legacy Tarn. I was very excited about this figure because as much as I like MMC's Coulter, which you can check out up there, I there were certain things about it that just didn't quite sit right with me, and I couldn't quite figure out why. Um, I don't know. After a while, I kind of fell out of love with it. I didn't start disliking it or anything like that, but it just wasn't wowing me the way it did when I first got it. Which is why, regrettably, I no longer have Coulter to do a direct comparison to this. I actually did sell off Coulter a little while ago, before I got this guy, just in anticipation of getting him. I mean, I'm not like a huge Tarn fanboy, I just think the design's cool, and I've kind of started reworking my collection so that it's more, like I have some figures that are kind of standalone, but for the most part, I try to collect multiple figures for the same character. That's why I have like, I think like 15 Nemesis Primes and 15 Megatrons at this point, like probably like 8 Soundwaves. I don't know. I've got a lot of a mix, but like I think that's more appealing to me. So with Tarn, he's the kind of guy that I feel like one figure's enough, and Coulter just wasn't really doing it for me anymore. So now I've got the Legacy version, and the Legacy version is really cool. It's a weird little Cybertronian tank, like always. It's got this weird thing going on where it doesn't quite fit. Like it sits okay now, but I don't know, it's weird how this thing has come together in the past for me. Like the legs are pegged in how they're supposed to be pegged in, but they kind of look like they're going up at an angle a little bit. And this little purple bit here that these cannons are attached to, there's actually a little peg in there, which you might even be able to see, like right in the middle there, that pegs into a peg hole on the butt. But if you peg that in, then that points up as well. So it's just kind of weird how it sits. I don't mind it, it's just weird. Also, yes, he has visible fists on the back, but I really don't care. And if you turn them this way, like, they're not really something you notice. But anyway, he is a Cybertronian tank, as is his deal, and it looks pretty cool. I appreciate the fact that they enabled the tank turret to turn in this mode. That's something that even MMC's version didn't quite get right. Like, you could do it, but you had to pop it up in order to get it to turn, and it just didn't really work that well. But this one can go all the way around, but you want to be careful of these little knee spikes. Would have been nice if those could fold down to cover this up a little bit. But nope, they're solid. You can't really tell because they actually painted the insides, but these are all solid and part of this shin plastic. Yeah, it looks like Tarn's tank mode from what I understand, with the stack of treads, which also are really nice in how they have this like silver detailing here, which I have issues with how they approach this for robot mode, which I'll get to when we get there. But yeah, I like that detail in there. You of course have the little cow catcher thing, and overall it's just a neat tank that looks like kind of a mess, but that's sort of the point. And size-wise, it's not a bad size either. We bring in the usual comparison figures here, and actually back things up so you can see what I'm looking at here. He is pretty decently sized. You know, it's supposed to be a Voyager, so that makes sense. And yeah, that's how big he is. Let's get these out of here. And once again, I don't have a other Voyager size figure to, like modern Voyager size figure to do a comparison with, because I did not bother. But here he is with Skullgrin, who is a deluxe, and they're like, Tarn is noticeably bigger, but not by a whole lot. But he's denser and also has more engineering going on, so I think that's fair. That's kind of what, you know, we know that's what they've been doing with a lot of Voyagers and Leaders and stuff. They kind of are a smaller size, but more complex engineering. Anyway, here he is with our boy MMC's impactor, so you can see how the two Cybertronian tanks look together. And honestly, I'm going to have to say, I think the one that does not look like a waterfowl is the better looking one here. Which is not to say that I think Spartan is bad. I've said this before. I actually really like Spartan, but that tank mode is just, oh boy. Anyway, let us start transforming Tarn. So to go, I'm going to pop the turret off, and the turret actually, these little tabs tab into the shins there. Now, the instructions actually want you to rotate this around, and I'm going to do that so that I can show you what it's like, but I honestly don't like doing that. I prefer to keep it like this, and I'll show you why when we get to robot mode. But anyway, that is that. That goes off to the side. And now we can start on the figure proper. So we're going to pull up the legs, and the legs tab in here, and there's also a tab here that tabs in up there. So you want to pull those back, and then can lift this piece up. It's on a double hinge, so just lift that up. And going to, let's see, going to work on the arms. So I'm going to untab these little flaps. These little tabs kind of sit in the this little gap here. So you want to untab those first. Then you can pull this out, and this will swing around and tab in up here. And then this little thing closes up to finish off the shoulder. Same deal over here. Just pop that out, swing it around, and peg it in, and then swing that in. And now untab the arms from the legs, and these will swing down into place. And then this panel here will swing around to what will become the outside. Then you can rotate the arm at the bicep, rotate the fist, and the arm's pretty much done. Same deal here, untab, swing out, flip that around, rotate, and rotate the fist. Now, going to rotate the arms up this way and just kind of spread them out a little bit to get them out of the way. With the arms out of the way, I'm going to straighten out the legs. So these will straighten out here, and they actually click in. So if you push, that'll click out and keep these, it basically, separate the legs, it basically keeps this from moving when you're bending the knee, so it stops right there. If you want to get further, you can just click it past there and get a much deeper knee bend, but I think locking it in place works just fine. And with that done, you can flip down the feet, and the legs are done. So for the upper body, we're going to take this little panel here, rotate it around, unpeg the cannons from these little tabs here, flip them up, and then they will kind of tab in up here, kind of. So swing those up and get those into place. I'm going to keep this flipped back a little bit. And now I want to kind of pull this piece forward and start rotating the arms. Bring those in so that they're not crashing against this. So you want to rotate the arms around. And before getting everything situated, I'm going to bring that forward a little bit so that we can flip the head out. Or start flipping the head out. Now rotate these treads down the rest of the way, and they actually push in. Just a little bit, but they do push in. And then the chest plate comes down and will actually tab into the treads. So that will hold that in place. Then we can finish bringing the head up, and the head will kind of, there's like this tab here that settles in right there. And rotate the head around. And then bring this up, and this back piece will tab into the other side of the treads. And that will lock the torso together very tightly, very snugly. And there we have Legacy Tarn in robot mode looking very cool. Now, of course, you can't really have Tarn without the arm cannon, so the peg will peg into the arm, and you can do, there are 2 peg holes, so you could do all the way forward, which I think looks silly, or you could do the rear one, which it just looks too far forward to me. This is why I don't like rotating that thing around for robot mode. That just seems like it's sitting a little too far forward on his forearm for my liking. So that's why what I prefer to do is keep this rotated around and then use that peg into the back, in the back. The wonders of editing. I miss it. But yeah, I rotate it around and peg that into the front peg on the forearm, and that just has the cannon sitting just a little bit further back. And yeah, this panel now kind of gets in the way of what's going on here. Kind of, but like you've got this hinge that can account for it. You can rotate the arm. It's not that bad, and if the elbow's bent, it's not really a problem. I just prefer that. I think it looks better, sits better, so that's how I have the forearm cannon mounted. But yes, Legacy Tarn is a heck of a figure. Like, it looks imposing. He looks a bit beefier than MMC Coulter. Like, Coulter just had this slightly skinny proportion thing going with like his legs and arms. I think it's more that the rest of his like certain parts of his bulk, like his shoulders and his shins and feet, were so much larger, it made his biceps and thighs and stuff look a lot skinnier. So this works. This, I think, does the job of making him look a little bit more bulky. And if you look at him from the back, from the sides, he's pretty much kibbleless. You've got like these panels on the forearms that stick out a little bit, but that's kind of it. And he does not have a bunch of like open gaps and stuff. Like there's even inside the armpit, you can see that there's no real waffling, I believe is what it's called, which I've said this before. I feel like people get way too I'll go with particular. It's probably the less insulting way to put it. People get very particular sometimes when it comes to seeing gaps and stuff in figures. Like, like Artfire, you can see these little holes around his feet and stuff. And like, I get that it's unsightly, but it's not that big a deal. And I mean, it's cool that they managed to do Tarn without... It's so weird actually calling him Tarn. It's cool that they were able to make Tarn without all of that, but I feel like it's not... I don't know, it's just people get way too fussy about that. But anyway, he looks great. The colors are fantastic. The shape is great. The design is great. There's a lot of really nice detailing. I love that they have this two-tone purple going on in like the shins and the torso and the forearms to a degree, because the elbow joint's a little bit darker than what's going on like right above or right below it. And of course, there's that really nice gold for the shins and the toes. The torso has some really nice detail in it. The silver and this kind of darker, I want to say it's black, but it's kind of like a dark blue. Now, they did do a thing that's a little bit like, oh, hopefully things don't go south over time, but the stomach and the chest and the back plate and the guns, but we'll get to those, are done in actually like a translucent purpley plastic, which is kind of cool because you can kind of see it makes it look like he's glowing and stuff in a few places, like, lights shining through and stuff. That's neat. But the problem is this entire panel, this stomach panel, all that stuff is in that plastic. So, these are tabbed into the torso. They're kind of holding things together. I just worry that if this plastic goes the way of some of Hasbro's other translucent plastic, like say Titan's Turn Weird Wolf or Wolfwire, that thing crumbles to dust without having to touch it. It's just not the best choice, but hopefully this plastic holds up. I don't know. But it does look great for what it is. And speaking of looks great, the head that is Tarn. That is Tarn's head, and it looks really nice. And I appreciate the slightly different coloring that they used in some places. He's got light piping, but the piping thing is just this tiny bit on the top of his head, so it's not the easiest thing to get to light up. But it looks great if you can get it to light up. And yeah, I just love the imposing Decepticon logo mask. As for articulation, the head's on a ball joint, so you can get some tilt and up and down and rotation. I appreciate that he can look down like that, because that just seems really good for like imposing figure poses. The arms can go all the way around and go out like that. You've got a bicep swivel that's just above the elbow, and then you've also got this joint that you can use if you want. The elbow bends a little bit past 90. The wrists do rotate, and the fingers open. And you can actually see that he's got kind of like a clawed fingertips, which is pretty cool. So you've got the opening fingers. The waist does rotate. It kind of knocks into the, just because of this panel here, it knocks into the back plate, so you're not going to be able to do like a full 360 unless you kind of pull this out of the way. But I don't know, why would you need to do a full 360 on the waist in robot mode? The hips can go forward past 90 and back to about 90. They can go out like so, though it's a little bit tricky to do because like this hip skirt panel thing is separate from the rest of the hip and it kind of sticks a little bit, but you can get the hip to go out. You get a thigh rotation, and as I showed before, you got a pretty deep knee bend on its own, but if you detransform that one joint, then you can get a practically 180 knee bend. And then for the ankles, they can go forward quite a bit. They can go back all the way if you line things up, because you lose the ankle tilt the further back you go. And then you also get ankle tilt. So he is quite posable for, for what he is. He's not like the most, I don't know. he's not like necessarily going to put like third-party figures with ab crunches and stuff to shame, but he's pretty darn posable. And as I've already said, he looks fantastic. And as for size, let us bring in the crew again. You can see already that he is a little bit taller than your average Voyager. He also looks bulkier, though I feel like he's not necessarily bulkier than Artfire, because like Artfire is chunky. Tarn is not slim, but like he doesn't have a ton of bulk on him, like hanging off his back and stuff like that. So he's taller, but not necessarily denser, if that makes sense. And get these out of the way. And I don't think I have any other modern Legacy Voyager class figures that I can compare him to, so we're just going to go straight to this thing. So there is Tarn with Impactor in vehicle mode because duck tank. And yeah, I don't know, that's all I've got to say about Legacy Tarn. I actually like this figure a lot, and I don't know, like, I know some people are going to disagree with me, and that's fine. But personally, I actually prefer this to Coulter, which I've said already. But really, it's just, it's just a neat all-around package. I think the proportions and overall like distribution of the bulk works better. Posability is pretty much on par with Coulter, if not better, except for the lack of an ab crunch. It looks really good. I can't really think of much that is missing. Oh, wait, actually, there is one thing I alluded to earlier and forgot to mention. With regards to the tread details, the one thing that really bugs me about this guy's deco is the fact that they did that really nice silver that you could see on the treads, like you could see it on the armpits here. It's like gunmetal-y silver that they did for the detailing. That looks great, but you can only see it in vehicle mode because in robot mode it's under the arms and it's closed up in here, and those little panels that flip out aren't painted. So the outer tread bits that you see in robot mode don't have that really nice metallic paint. I really wish they had added paint there. I mean, that would have meant taking paint away from something else, but I don't know, that seems like they missed an opportunity. I kind of think maybe if they had done, it's probably like a molding thing, but maybe if this was just solid purple, like a, solid purple plastic like some of the other purple parts, rather than being painted, they could have used that budget towards the shoulders. I don't know. I'm not a toy guy. I don't know how it all works, but it just would have been nice. But aside from that one little gripe, I actually think Legacy Tarn is really, really fantastic. I don't think I would quite put him on par with Kingdom Cyclonus. I feel like that's still one of the big standout, incredible Voyagers of the past, 5 to 10 years. But he's up there. That's enough of my rambling and unedited rambling at that about Legacy Tarn. What do you all think of this figure, or how it compares to Coulter, or any of that stuff? Whatever your thoughts, feel free to chime in down below. I always enjoy hearing from you all. Thank you everybody for watching, and remember, toys are awesome, and also just be good to each other, yeah?